Good morning, good afternoon. Actually, it's noon, so I guess we can go with afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to hope that more people join as we go. But let me first introduce who I am so everybody has a chance to get that under their belts. I am Tara Trevorrow. I'm the judicial law clerk to Judge Mora in the Southern District of Florida. I work with the bankruptcy court. I've been with the court for about 5 years. Before that, I practiced in large law firms in Miami. So I was with 800 firms, and I was also with smaller law firms. Terrible. Sorry, you're hearing a dog bark in the background. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to help you get started with drafting your first legal article. So my role today is just to help you get into the mode of writing, understanding how you can pick a topic if you haven't already been assigned one, how to get started writing when you have writer's block, some tips and tricks you can use to make your writing a little bit more clean and polished, and just some general ideas of how you can develop your writing skills as you progress throughout your career. So since this is being recorded today, I'm going to go through everything pretty quickly. I'm just going to run from one topic to the next. I'm hopeful that there are people who are going to be submitting questions. If we have any at the end, I will address those once I've gone through the whole presentation. So otherwise, if you need to jump in and send something through the chat window, that's fine as well. So the first thing I'm going to help you with is picking a topic. Picking a topic it can be the toughest part, honestly. If you haven't already got something in mind and know exactly what you want to do, it can be really hard to decide where to start. So if you've been assigned a topic, relax. All you have to do now is learn and just teach what it is that you learned. If you have to choose, then you're going to need to start brainstorming. And so I'm going to give you some ideas for how you can brainstorm. Think first, if you're brainstorming, about your audience. So use that as the very beginning step. What sort of articles does the organization publish? What sort of tone are you aiming for? Who's your ideal audience? That's going to help you decide whether you want to do something very technical, something a little bit more current. It'll just help guide your initial process of brainstorming. Now, for content. What was the last assignment that really challenged you and why? Because if that assignment challenged you, then odds are pretty good that somebody else is going to be equally challenged when they're trying to figure out that same topic. So that's another way you can just sort of get into the idea of what is it that I should write on. I have absolutely no idea. I practice in the area of bankruptcy, but what's really happening right now? Well, third-party releases, that's kind of been done. I had an assignment last week about household size. That actually was kind of interesting. Maybe I'll go for that. So just think about recent assignments that have challenged you, try to figure out why you found them difficult, and then use that information to help get you started on your brainstorming process. The last tip I'm going to give you is think about what you like to read. If you want to read the article, or if you want to know about the topic, then probably somebody else does too. This isn't necessarily an instance where you need to put on your smarty pants outfit and run out there to just show the world how brilliant you are. You're already brilliant because you've gotten into this program and you're a fellow. We got it. You're great. How about just write something that's engaging to you, something that works for you? I promise you it's going to be good enough. If you're interested, other people will be interested as well. So with that in mind, before you get started, you're going to think not just about what you want to read content-wise, but you're also going to think about what you like to read in terms of anything that's out there. And really, the world is your oyster. Do you like to read nonfiction? Do you like to read fiction? Do you like to read YA? Do you like to read the comments on Reddit or YouTube? It doesn't matter. Are you somebody who reads tweets? Do you read the Wall Street Times? Whatever you read for fun, there's a reason why you're reading it. There's a reason why it's drawn you in. That's the same type of writing you want to do. This isn't some special land where you go into legal writing mode and you write in this very formalistic style because this is how it's always been done. I think we've pretty safely put that behind us now. You want to be respectful in your tone, but it's fine to go ahead and be plain spoken. In fact, people really enjoy it. That's generally preferred. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to stop and think, what is the major point of your article? Try to summarize that in just one sentence. If you can get the entire concept down to just one sentence, then you're ready to start because you know from a 10,000-foot level what the big takeaways are, and that's really what you want to share. So once you've got that under your belt, you just get started. And the only way to learn to draft is by drafting. Sometimes you need to start writing, even if you aren't quite sure what to say or how to say it. It's honestly pretty normal to be a little bit lost and when you're trying to figure out exactly how do I get started? What do I do? This feels overwhelming. It's fine. Everybody has that moment. Have your little 5-minute freak out and just set it behind. Start writing. So even if you don't have the research perfectly done, even if you don't have all of your ideas perfectly coalesced in your head, you at least have a major point and you know tone-wise kind of which way you want to go. Okay, start drafting. Just dive in and go for it. Don't let the desire for perfection get in the way of putting words on paper. It's much easier to edit than it is to face a blank page. So one of the things I'm going to share with you today is my process for writing. It's unique to me. I made it 10 steps because honestly, 10 is easy to remember. There's no magic. I just made it 10. And what I'm going to do is walk you through my process so you can understand this is one path to success. Your process may look different. That's completely fine. The idea for today is I'm just giving you ideas for how you can get started on your first legal article and feel confident that you've done a good job. So the first thing I do is I think through the issues and the reason why I selected the topic, or perhaps why I was assigned the topic. This is a little different from, hey, what's the topic going to be? Now you're going into the why. And that's the one sentence summary I told you about. What's the big why? Why are you writing this? Just get that fresh in your head, make sure you've got an idea, and launch from that point. Start writing. Good or bad, it does not matter, just start. So you're already on step 2 out of 10. So now as you're writing, when you're citing to documents, anything, whether it's case law, a web source, another legal journal, verify. You read something, it was interesting, you think you want to cite out to it, go stop, and then go and look and see what it is that you were citing to, and make sure that the premise is exactly what you remembered it to be. Because honestly, this is the time when you will discover that what you thought it was is not actually what it is. A lot of times your perception of what you read has been slightly altered, and you want to make sure that everything is exactly true. It's much easier to catch it as you're drafting than when you're going back and cleaning up at the end. So verify as you go. Once you've got things down on paper, you don't even have to be done yet, but edit ruthlessly. Just pull out anything that doesn't quite work. It's okay. You're going to come up with more material. This isn't your only shot to get words down on paper. Just pull it out. Make it tight, make it clean. Set your draft aside. Then you're going to edit it again. And you're going to look at every single word cut as a victory. You're trying to make this simple, streamlined, engaging, brief. Don't aim for a huge word count. It just doesn't matter. What matters is good quality writing. So you're going to repeat the editing and setting it aside as many times as you can. You're limited only by the time you have until your deadline. Sometimes I edit things 10 times. It really just depends. I'm constantly editing as I go. That's part of how I write. But even once I've completely finished it, I read through it many times, whatever it is. And I would encourage you to do the same. You'll find things that you like and find things that you dislike. and you'll start to learn what your habits are and how to edit those out, because you will have verbal tics in your writing. So the last few steps are that you proofread your work. That goes without saying, of course you proof it, but you're going to also realize you forgot to put the pin side in that you thought you put in. Just go back and check, find everything. Then you're going to key cite or shepherdize if you are using legal sources. So just make sure that step doesn't get skipped. You're going to make sure you do it close to publication, or at least close until the day when you send it off. If you're doing a more current news type of article, you can obviously skip this step. You're going to proof one more time. And if possible, you're going to let it sit, whether it's 10 minutes, an hour, or a day. You're going to try to let it sit, because when you come back with fresh eyes and proof it one last time, you're going to find things that you didn't catch, even though you've already looked at it 5 times, even though you've already gone through and edited and edited and edited. It never fails. On my last read through, I find typos, unfortunately. So give yourself an extra day if you possibly can. My personal rule, my cardinal rule, is that I never send anything out late in the day. I know me, I'm tired by the end of the day, I will miss something. So I always finish a day ahead, and then in the morning, I go back and do my last minute check, and then I'll send it out wherever it needs to go. So now that you know the process, let's talk a little bit more about content and how to make it engaging. The first thing you have to think about, I told you from the very, very beginning, who is the audience? That matters, because what you really want to do is you want to write for somebody who knows nothing. Imagine a layperson who has a basic understanding of the law, but no more. You're going to be that clear. You're going to try to lay out your thoughts in a way where people can follow them without any sort of specialized knowledge. Now, it's understood if you're writing for something like the business law, the sections newsletter, you're dealing with attorneys and they're all smart people. That's fine. But trust me, I have yet to run into anyone, including a judge, who doesn't like having things laid out in a simple, clean fashion where they can follow it, even if it's not their area of expertise. So aim for clarity and write something that you would want to read for fun. Make it as engaging as you can. You do have permission to write something that's interesting. It doesn't have to be some stuffy legal article on an obscure topic. Think through what you like and do that. Why not? So I'm going to go through some pro tips, which I call how to write with style. And they are habits that I've developed over the course of the past about 15 years. I graduated in 2006. So I'm going to give you 5 points right off the bat, and then I'm going to get into some nuts and bolts. So my first pro tip, vary your sentence structure and length. Not every sentence needs to be a big, long expository sentence. In fact, some sentences should be very short. Very, very short. Just like that. Your writing should have a cadence. It should have a tone. So if you've got 3 long sentences in a row, you're going to start alienating the reader. Try to have long sentences mixed with short sentences. Try to have declarative sentences mixed with questions, if you can. Just think about the pacing. The other pro tip I have for you is that you should become best friends with a thesaurus. And y'all can't see my little notes here, but I'm going to let you in on a joke. I've got a little dinosaur next to the thesaurus because I knew it would make me smile. And I thought, somebody's watching this after the fact, why not make them smile as well? So the thesaurus is going to help you use an expanded vocabulary, and it matters more than you think. When you use the same words over and over again, it starts to become boring. And so the more you can just swap out, this isn't the best example because it sounds like a definition, but banker with a lender, or something, anything. I can't think of an example right on the spot, but just make sure that you are not continually reusing the same vocabulary. Challenge yourself, try to find a different way to say something. Sparkle, glitter, doesn't matter. Just find new ways to express the same concept because it will help the reader stay interested. Also, it would be my recommendation that you never start a sentence with a throat clearing word like however, therefore, thus. Those words typically can be skipped over. If you must use the word, if it's really essential to the meaning, then I would strongly recommend putting it in the middle of a sentence. And once you try to do that, you're going to realize that you probably didn't need the word, or maybe there's a better way to structure the sentence, or maybe you just shouldn't be putting that concept there. Just challenge yourself not to start off a sentence with however, therefore, thus, accordingly, consequently, thereby, all of those words. Try not to make them the first word. Also, don't use a $5 word when a 50-cent one will do. And that's a little terrorism. I'm from the South. We tend to like colorful expressions. And so that's one that I think sums up the writing style I strive for. I have plenty of $5 words in my vocabulary, but not everybody wants to hear them all the time. If there's a simple way to say something, I can guarantee you most people want to hear it that way. So do it. It's fine. Your intelligence will show in other ways. Go for the easy, clear way to say whatever it is you're trying to say. And my fifth pro tip is charts and tables provide a simple and effective way to convey key information. So don't be afraid to use visual aids in your article. It's fine. If that's the most succinct way to put information out there or to tie concepts together, then I would actually strongly recommend that you do it. I happen to be a visual learner. I really appreciate charts and graphs, and I have yet to put something like that into work product and not have somebody come back and say, I really liked that you had a table instead of trying to explain that in paragraph. It helped me a lot. So feel free to use charts, graphs, tables, whatever works for you when when it's appropriate to do so. All right, I promised you some nuts and bolts. I'm going to give you a few more very nitty-gritty kinds of things you can do to help you feel confident about your writing. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that organization matters. If you're going to obsess over anything, you're going to obsess over your organization, even more so than your word choice, and probably even more so than your topic choice, because you want to come up with a logical organization that flows. You may have to move things around, you may have to restructure. I am not an outline person. A lot of people believe in doing an outline from the start, outlining all their thoughts, getting the big picture, and then going and writing. That's just not how I work. I start writing. I go for it right off the bat. I hope to have an overall organization in my head, but sometimes I need to just get started and then organize as the thoughts come out. I start to see, oh, really, this thought belongs up here. It doesn't matter how you get there, but get there. Do pay attention to your organization. And I would strongly recommend using headings whenever you possibly can. A heading every maybe 2 to 3 paragraphs is a tight structure. Sometimes you might have a heading for like, I don't know, a page and a half of information. But the more you can do headings and subheadings, it orients the reader. And that is something that pretty much everyone appreciates, especially if they're in a hurry. Another thing I can tell you that works really well for me that I would recommend doing is having a separate Word document that you call your cutouts document. And what you're going to do is you're going to take language that you've written that you like, but doesn't quite fit. You're going to pull it out of your document and throw it in your cutouts document. And that way it's not lost. So you don't have to worry, okay, should I be editing this? Yes or no, I kind of like this. It's an important point, but what if, just throw it in another document. You will probably remember it. It is available to you at any point. You can go back and pull that language back in, but I almost never do. Once I get the strength to kill my darlings and throw them into another document, I usually never pull them back because they really didn't fit in the first place. It was just me being wordy and creative for a moment. I also recommend that you check your definitions. They have a way of morphing sometimes, particularly if you're co-authoring something, because 2 drafters means twice the editing hassle. It usually leads to a better work product though. Nothing wrong with co-authoring with someone. But in that instance in particular, you're going to have to be extra careful with your definitions because people internally tend to just go with one thing, like banker versus lender from before. Sometimes people just have a way that they think of things in their head. So go back and check your definitions. A lot of times they do go sideways. All right, I have about 6 more nuts and bolts. I'm going to walk through those, and then I'm going to carry you through to the end. So for those of you who are watching after the fact, you're about 2/3 to 3/4 the way through. All right, very, very nitty gritty. You're going to use a comma before which. Here's why I'm telling you to do that. When I am editing other people's work, I notice that if they don't use a comma before which, they usually have a long run-on sentence. And sometimes people have 2 whiches in the same sentence. Nope, nope, nope. So making yourself use a comma before which is purely a matter of style. It is not a grammatical rule, but I found it to be a good way to keep sentences tight, short, declarative, and easy to read. I also recommend that you keep your paragraphs between 2 to 5 sentences long generally. So they're going to not take up more than about 1/3 of the page. When you're looking at your Microsoft Word processing, whatever you have it blown up to, look at the full page. If the paragraph is taking up more than about 1/3 of the page, it's getting long. It doesn't mean it's wrong, just be aware. People will start, their eyes are going to start glazing. You want to keep people engaged. So a paragraph of 2 sentences is perfectly valid. I mentioned before that you should use headings. I do strongly recommend that. Think of all the times you've gone to research something and you were in a hurry, or you were skimming an article because you didn't really have time to read it, but it was interesting to you, and you just jumped down to the heading of the part that you cared about. Okay, do that for someone else. Ideally, you hope someone's going to read your full article from top to bottom and love every word, but isn't somebody reading a paragraph better than not reading it at all because it's just a big wall of text? Use headings. If you're doing research for your legal article, I'm going to give you a reminder that case law is almost always written in a passive voice. It's a bad habit that people get into and never break, and don't perpetuate the problem. You're going to use active voice 99% of the time if you possibly can. So as you're looking at your research, you're going to want to echo that tone and use passive voice again. You have to stop yourself and say, nope, I'm writing an active voice, and go back and edit it out. You're also going to have to look out for your habitual phrases. We all have them. When I'm speaking, I often say, honestly, frankly, to be honest. It's just a verbal tick. I'm never not intending to be honest, but when I'm speaking, that comes out. When I'm writing, I've gotten to the point now where I pull those things out. But I do have habits, and you will too. So try to pay attention to your habits and try to vary your sentence structure and length. I talked about that before. And pull out the words that don't serve any purpose accordingly. Do you really have to use that word? Okay, you're going to want to be a grammar nerd. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you learn how to use em dashes and n dashes and semicolons and colons, even better than you do now, if you take the time to read a style guide, if you read something like Eats, Shoots, and Leaves, or you read some of the, Brian Garner has guides out there, and Russ Guberman, and there are plenty of people. If you take the time to really focus on grammar, then it's a tool. It's not something that you're like, oh gosh, and what if? It's available. And you'll learn that honestly, all of those little devices where you're trying to string together thoughts, dash a thought and dash another thought, it's a crutch. You really aren't going to use them very much. Once you know how to use them, you will use them very effectively and not all the time. So it's a process. It took me a long time to get out of the habit of using dashes, but it's worth doing. So become a grammar nerd. All right. So you're in the home stretch. Now you're polishing for publication. You've sent your draft off, or you're about to send it off, and you're just really close to being done. Here are 6 ideas I want to share with you. A couple are tips, and other are just thoughts. So the first one I'm going to tell you is that brevity is always valued. I recently sent off an article to a publication, and it was shorter than their required minimum. It was, I thought, on a topic that was interesting, and I thought it was something useful. but I didn't have a great deal to say, and I wasn't going to fill up the page just to fill up the page. I wanted to flag the issue, talk about what's out there, and just say, hey, this is an open question for people. Here's the case law that you can look to, but there really isn't very much at the circuit level. So this is where we think we are. The publication came back to me and said, don't worry at all about the length. We love that you picked this topic. We agree that it's valid. We're fine with an article that's shorter than what we told you. So believe it or not, I'm not encouraging you to turn over a paragraph when you've been asked for something, 2,000 words or 4,000 words, whatever. You're going to need to put some effort into it. But brevity is always valued. As long as it's simple, clear, direct, effective, it's fine. It's also okay to let go of some of the principles that you were taught if they don't serve you now. I was taught a very formalistic writing style. I started with large law firms, AmLaw 100 type firms, and we just did the full, so-and-so bank lender at such and such and such and such and such and such in the first sentence. And I never do that now because no one wants to read all that. They want to immediately be drawn in and understand what they're reading and why they're reading it. So consider what you've been taught and consider whether it's useful for your current goal. If you're writing for a partner and a partner likes it a certain way, do that for that partner. But when you're writing a legal article, you're really writing it for yourself and for the world to read. So you don't have to follow all of those exact rules. You have a chance to be yourself and to be a bit more natural. So I've told you this before, but remember, save the vocabulary for your verbs. You're going to try to have very active and engaging verbs. One of the ways you can test that is by going through and striking all of your adjectives, adverbs, any throat clearing phrases, and you'll see whether or not your verbs are active enough to draw the reader in. So I think this was, someone told me that Stephen King used to do this, and I do it every now and then. If I suspect that I've gotten too wordy in a document, I'll put in a find for any word that ends in ly. And that shows me all of my adverbs. And a lot of times those can go. They really are extra. So make sure that your writing stands on its own. Something doesn't always have to be very whatever. Sometimes it's just whatever. Strive to use connecting ideas and not connecting words. I've now told you this twice already, so this is the third time. Try to avoid additionally, comma, moreover, comma, however, comma. It's really tempting, and sometimes it's just the only way to bridge from one sentence to the other. I'm not perfect. I'm sure I do it sometimes, but I really try not to, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. And my last two things to say on polishing are a little bit of a license to be you. Imagery is fun, and colloquial expressions can be engaging. I told y'all already, I'm from the South, I'm from North Carolina. And so in an article I just sent out, I talked about using the wrong legal tool for the analytical task. And the way I explained it was like using a butter knife to turn a slot-headed screw. Yeah, it works, but there are better tools out there. And the publication came back with, hey, this is fine. We kind of like this. It's descriptive. It might be a little too folksy, but I'm leaving it in there because it's clear. It really tells you why the test is okay, but not the one that seems to be prevailing. And colloquial expressions, I just think it makes something a bit more engaging. So if you have one and you want to use it and it's appropriate, like time is money. If that fits into your article, don't go cutesy, don't try to get overly clever. But if something like that fits in and it sums up what you're talking about, put it in. It's okay. It makes it instantly relatable. All right, so I have some final words of wisdom, and we are really in the home stretch. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is to give it time. No one is great out of the gate. It's going to take you a while to find your voice. It's going to take you a while to figure out who you are as a writer, and that's okay. It's completely okay. I'm still working on it, and I told you I graduated over 15 years ago. So don't beat yourself up if your first draft isn't everything you want it to be. Just get a draft done. and keep working. You're going to learn over time. You're going to learn your strengths and weaknesses so that you can continue to grow. That's an important part of this. Understand that learning how to write as an attorney is a daily journey. You're going to work on this until you stop practicing. And every single year, you're going to get better and better and better. So view drafting and presentation skills is something that you're going to continue to develop over your entire practice. You're where you are today. You're going to do the best job you can today. And you're going to decide what sort of writer you want to be. Do you want to be a highly technical writer? Do you want to be a colorful writer? Whatever you want to be, that's who you're going to be. In order to achieve that, you're going to read and learn from others in any setting. Seriously, if reading the comments in Reddit is what you do for fun because they're entertaining to you, why are they entertaining? Think about that. If you happen to like reading, I don't know, Le Monde in French because that's your second language and you just happen to like the conservative style, learn something from that. It doesn't matter where you read, just read and learn and pay attention to the pacing and the structure. How does that pull you in? Why does it pull you in? There's a reason why John Grisham and Suzanne Collins are both, and J.K. Rowling ended up having novels that were read by almost everyone. Their writing tends to draw you right in. Whether you love them or hate them, you have to admit they have a really good way of engaging the reader. And so that's your job. It may not be fiction, but it's still your job to make it interesting. Take pleasure in writing well. Anything that brings joy to your work or joy to your life is worth pursuing. And writing can be a lot of fun. Even an article, even when you're on a deadline, it can still be something that you can be proud of. So when you finish your article, be proud of your accomplishment. Getting an article out there is a feather in your cap. At this stage in your career, a lot of the work you do is going to a partner who's then putting his or her name on it. It's going to the court. It may not be just your work product, but when you do an article, it's yours. It's your opportunity to grow. And it's something that you did for yourself and in service to, if you're writing for the BLS, in service to the BLS. So it's fantastic. You should be really proud that you got it done. And honestly, that's all I have for y'all. So I'm going to check the chat. Just give me a second here and see if there's anything. I think we don't have any questions. I think we're good. So I am just going to wrap up and thank everyone for paying attention. I hope that the material was useful to you. I hope that you had at least a little bit of new information come at you that will be something you can refer back to and use as you start writing your first legal article. And again, remember, this is something you're doing for yourself. So be proud. You're going to get it done. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tara, for this informative CLE presentation. This was helpful to me as well. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise. A lot of things I've learned, but I think this was definitely great. And Thesaurus is my best friend. Okay, Thesaurus is my best friend. But this was great. So thank you so very much.
My pleasure. I hope it's helpful and I'll see you around. Thanks. Bye-bye.